Hello, friends. So, this is a new lecture for ethics, and in this lecture, we will read about the ethical issues in international relations and funding. So, most of the time, it is being said that international relations are governed by realpolitik. So, realpolitik was the philosophy given by Machiavelli, and it solely said that international relations or the relation between countries are governed more by the national interest and not by the per se ethical values. So, this is one of the misconceptions that people have about international relations, that there are no space for ethical considerations and ethical values, and that's why this topic has been asked by UPSC in 2015, 17, and 2020 with the various connotations. In 2020 they had talked about the cusp of power, the race for power, and how even if you want to have a powerful stand in the arena of countries, still you can have scope for ethical considerations, and that was the question all about in the 2020. So first of all, we will read about what is international ethics. So it is the standards, universal values that guide, govern the behaviors and actions of the countries in the international affairs. Okay, so say for example, there are human rights. So basic human rights are the set of principles that are protected by most of the countries, because they have been charted out, um, so that this is being respected by the countries around the world, because this is the basic of humanity. The basic edifice of humanity is based on such principles, where if in the world there is injustice at one place, it can become problematic for another place. That's why our former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee had said, see, if we want to prosper, we have to prosper collectively. The all the neighbors have to also prosper, then only India's development will be sustainable in nature. Otherwise there will be issues like migration, trafficking, and so forth. There will be tension in the neighboring countries, like there was tension in Myanmar. And if there is tension in neighboring countries, there is also ethnic similarity between Myanmar and the states like Mizoram, etc., or Manipur, which are bordering. So that tension also gets uh, entered into our country as well, and it affects, and that's why the collective development is necessary. So significance of international ethics is embedded in one of the quote of Martin Luther King Jr. He said that injustice anywhere is threat to justice everywhere. If there is a poverty in the Syria, or if there is a poverty in the Middle East, or if there is a coup going on in the Middle East, that can make and develop a monstrous ISIS, and which can be threat for the entire world. That's why it's important to have justice at all the places. If you see, due to globalization, this world has become a jungle, a global jungle, and there has been increasing cooperation, and physical borders are getting blurred and blurred in the international affairs, and the issues have become global. That's why in the present time the importance of ethical values has further enhanced. So let's see the importance and significance of international ethics. First is responsibility. So ethics ensures that the rich and developed countries contribute to the development of least developed countries, and thus make them responsible for human development in these countries as well. Say for example, we have talked about the climate change and the negotiations that go on. So what developed world wants is that even though they are the ones who are responsible for the climate issues and climate changes, and historically they have emitted the carbon dioxide in per capita more than the developing world, then also they want that there should be a kind of equal responsibility for the for ensuring that there is no climate change according to the Paris Treaty. Then comes ethical values of common but differentiated responsibility, thus giving a window, giving a kind of respite to the developing world, and it should be ensured through climate finances, etc., by the developed country. Second is humanitarian ethics. So ethics ensures that newer development in the field of science, defense, security, and cooperation of countries in these areas do not hamper human rights. Okay, so examples are what? Countries putting restrictions on end use of weapons through MTCR, Australia Group, Wassenaar Group, nuclear suppliers group. So they are all based on the humanitarian ethics, that the use of science should not be to destroy the humanity, but it should be to make a collective development across the world. So it is also about humanitarian ethics. Then about compassion. So ethics brings compassion in international relations, and countries express solidarity in difficult times with each other. The prime example being the global pandemic of COVID-19, and how India had provided vaccine to the countries of Africa across the globe. They had provided the vaccines through the COVAX program, and that was respected all across the world. Now also, if our honorable prime minister goes to the countries of Africa, he is being respected, because a friend in need is friend indeed. Okay. Then comes the peace and harmony. So ethics ensures that global affairs are conducted in such a manner that peace and harmony is promoted in the world, along with equality among nations. Okay. Example is United Nations was established for maintenance of peace in the world, because before the establishment of United Nations, world had seen two world wars, and there was huge bloodshed that had happened. League of Nations had failed to stop the Second World War, and that's why, to establish peace and harmony and to have a kind of ethical standards through various guidelines and charter of United Nations, they want to bring a kind of ethical standards across the world, and thus establish peace and harmony. Then comes legitimacy. Ethics provides legitimacy to countries, and it can also withdraw legitimacy from the countries. Say, for example, the aggression of Russia towards Ukraine. So the legitimacy of country has reduced after that in the world arena. Or if there was a coup by the military in Myanmar, but legitimacy of the Myanmar government led by the military state is less than Taliban-led government. There is also less legitimacy of that. So if the government has been not established through ethical principles, the legitimacy of the country reduces because of that. Human rights protection. So ethics ensures that countries work towards human rights protection and not in their narrow national interest only. So example, countries cooperated in tackling refugee crisis, Rohingya crisis. The countries like India, Bangladesh, etc. cooperated. India also sent some of the humanitarian aids to Bangladesh for the Rohingyas. So this was one of the example. Then solution to global problems. So ethics ensures that countries cooperate in tackling global problems, whether it is environmental pollution, whether it is terrorism, cybercrime, poverty, health and education, everything which is across the globe. There is a kind of cooperation which can be ensured through ethical principles. Then business ethics. As you know that few of the multinational companies are even bigger than the many of the countries of the world. Their GDP is less than the turnover of few companies. So with the growing of transnational company, ethics ensures that MNCs pay their due share of taxes in the countries of their operation and do not park their profit in tax havens. So there is a talk about global minimum tax deal, and then we all know about base erosion and profit shifting, double taxation avoidance agreement. In that we have introduced limitation of benefits, so that double taxation avoidance agreement is not misused to avoid tax. Racism. Ethics ensures that countries work towards eliminating racism in their policies. Example, South Africa was forced to end apartheid. So this is one of the example. Now, what are the ethical concerns in international relations? See, there is a lack of responsibility and equity. Although climate change is a global phenomena and developed countries are responsible for climate change, but the impact of climate change would be on the developing world more and least developed countries, especially the island countries like Mauritius, Maldives, Seychelles, Sri Lanka, all these countries. Example, developed countries are not willing to take responsibility for climate change and are against common but differentiate responsibility. I had told you, and the promise of climate finance has also not been fulfilled. Global poverty. While people in richer countries enjoy a lavish lifestyle, people in poorer countries lack even the basic human rights. And the so called capturing of resources by the developed countries, in the African countries especially, is something which is highly unethical. And the diamond that comes from the Africa, which is being utilized across the world, especially in the developed countries, known as blood diamond, because so many laborers, so many people die mining that diamond for the world, and the inhuman condition in which they work is highly unethical. So this is one of the things which should be taken care. Apathy towards third world. The word itself, third world, it shows the apathy. Well, how there can be three worlds? There is only one world, and they have made three worlds. One is the capitalist world, developed country. Second is the communist or socialist countries, and third is the developing and least developing countries. In difficult times, countries look for their self-interest rather than on the global interest. You would have seen that the United States of America initially was not willing to provide the components of vaccine to the to India, and then there was dialogues and discussion that happened, and then they agreed. There are more examples like developed countries looking COVID-19, booking COVID-19 vaccines in advance, even if over and above what they need. So this was the example of apathy towards third world. And then there was India, who had not vaccinated its own population and was supplying vaccines to other countries. Uh, and terrorism. So terrorism is a challenge for humanity, especially in the age of social media. But countries around the world have not been able to agree to the basic definition of terrorism. What is terrorism is has not been agreed at the world arena. There has been talk about good terrorism, bad terrorism, good Taliban, bad Taliban. How can a terrorist be good or bad? So this was the good or bad was made to suit the own interest of the countries. Whatever suited the world power. Initially, it was a dipolar world before the Cold War. There was USA and then USSR. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, there was a development of unipolar world with USA at the top. Now again, there is a development of dipolar world with USA and China, but India wants to make it a multipolar world. Okay. And India has given a comprehensive convention on counter-terrorism, but it is still pending in United Nations since 1996. Then lack of accountability. So global organizations have not been able to ensure accountability of the powerful countries, and the COVID-19 was prime example of that, because Chinese expansionism and refusing to abide by the award of permanent court of arbitration is another example, and also the example of the alleged role of WHO during COVID-19 pandemic, and the lack of information that was provided by China, and they were giving blanket uh, relief to China that whatever the information they are providing is true. First of all, WHO said that there is no human to human transmission. So these all the lack of accountability in the international organization made this global pandemic fatal. If the world would have governed by the ethical considerations, it could not have been that fatal. Then selfishness. I had talked about the COVID-19 example, so only about their own interest and not the global community. You would have seen that United Kingdom had given some of the guidelines for Covishield, not allowing the Indians, etc., because they were not recognizing the vaccines produced by India. So this was something which was like only based on your own interest, and lack of universal standards. So countries have often tended to protect their national interest and have moved away from universal standards in working towards this. Like example is China supporting Pakistan in United Nations listing of Masood Azhar. So this is what on one hand you are talking about Uyghur Muslims and terrorism, etc., and on the other hand you are supporting a terrorist, a big terrorist, just because it suits your own interest. So at the moment you would have seen that United States initially fueled jihadism in Afghanistan, and then what happened? They were bitten by the same monster. So at the end of the day, China will have to face the consequences of not supporting what is right, and this is what is karma, which acts even in the international relations. Values also um, is something which governs the fate of a nation. Then racism. Although global institutions have been working to end racism, but that is still prevalent. George Floyd case and the case of footballers of England being booed after losing in the World Cup, in the Euros also, is a prime example of the racism. And weakening global institutions. The prime example was the WHO and all the other institutions as well, who are funded by the developed countries and mostly by the USA and China. Now there is another topic which is being mentioned, that is ethical issues in international funding. So international funding is what? It refers to aid given by richer and advanced countries to poorer countries for developmental, security and other purposes. However, this aid presents following ethical issues. First is subverting sovereignty of nation. Like while giving funding to the recipient countries, donor agencies put several conditions that are best decided by the people and government of the countries. Like IMF had bailed out India and they had put several conditions like you have to open up the economy, etc. And in haste, India has to open up the economy, and that also led to providing first relaxation to service sector, and there was a proliferation of services sector because service tax was something which was not put in the 1991 or 92. It came in 1997, so it was highly unregulated and untaxed field, and thus there was a proliferation of service sector in the country, and manufacturing could not pull off. So this is one of the example. Second is exploiting compulsions. Like countries often exploit the compulsion of the recipient countries to further their own interest, and checkbook diplomacy of China by capturing the infrastructure of another country if they are not able to pay. They have captured some electricity departments of various countries, railway departments of various countries. So to just to like they have the lack of infrastructure, and to fulfill that they put some conditions and they exploit the compulsion. Funding to NGOs. Countries provide funding to NGOs to further their own interest. Like if something has not been awarded to a country, like Kudankulam project, if it was not awarded to one of the country, they funded the protest. So there is example of Greenpeace protesting in India against nuclear power plants. So that was something which was vested interest, which was funded. And second is another one is clinical trials. Pharma countries often conduct clinical trials in poorer countries, in African countries, and provide funding to recipient countries for this, which is violation of human rights, guinea pig, etc. And what not is happening. Neo-colonialism. Officially, the colonialism has ended, but neo-colonialism still stands, and there are various theories given by, like Wallerstein has given the world system theory, in which he had told that still the high quality infrastructure technology is being monopolized by countries like United States of America, Europe, and other developed nations, and the other works which are not technical and which are more manual are being exported to the developing countries. Thus there exists a division of labor between the developed and developing countries, which suits the interest of developed world. So this was one of the theory which was given. So like setting up factories and creating dependence of them, market tactics. There are so many mechanisms. Also, the multinational companies promotes the Western culture. You would have seen or observed that blue jeans proliferated in India after LPG reforms, because blue jeans is something which is manufactured in United States of America, and that's why you cannot wear blue jeans in the Russia, because they have banned it, because it is something which also like, if some country wants to dominate another country, they first dominate through culture. That my culture is progressive, your culture is backward, and that's what they have filled in our mind, that your dresses are backward, your sari is backward, our Western dresses are forward. If you wear this, you are modern. If you wear this, you are intelligent. If you wear this, you are some progressive in thinking. But this is not true, because in India what is happening is Westoxication, not Westernization. We are copying the dresses and attires of the Western world, but not the qualities, like the values of equality, liberty. Still we are wearing the Western dresses, but we are doing casteism, or we are not helping the poor, we are practicing racism. We There is a $1 billion industry of getting fair. uh, what is this? We are not comfortable with our own skin. There is use of filters to become fair and fair, because what they have made us believe, that white is beautiful and black is not beautiful, brown is not beautiful, because this has been impinged upon us by the Western world, and we are accepting that. The 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 advertisements of Fair and Lovely, where they show that a girl applies Fair and Lovely and becomes fairer and becomes confident. How a confidence and abilities is related to being fair? So this is one thing, and the whole country has become mad to become fair and fair. So this is one of the prime examples of multinational companies alleging, what is alleging, but they are doing it, promoting the Western culture. But in answer you will write alleged. Okay. Terror financing. Many times international funding has been channelized for terror funding, and also black money has been round tripped in the host country. Yeah, the countries like Singapore, Maldives, Mauritius, not Maldives, Mauritius more, and many of the islands in the Indian Ocean and Pacific Oceans are being alleged to be used just as a tax haven. So there is very less or no taxation, and what they do is, there is a kind of transfer that will happen, which will be fictitious in nature, and they will transfer the goods to another country, but the goods was operated or sold in the a country like India, but now they are showing it that it is being operated in another country. They are circumventing the taxes in India, and again that money is coming back to India, or the alleged corrupt uh, money which is being earned by the various stakeholders in the society. What they do is, they will through Hawala they will transfer it to the other countries, or through shell companies they will transfer it to other countries, and then again it will come back as an FDI in the country, getting legalized. So that's why you will see countries like Singapore and other countries are leading in the FDI investment in the India. They are not that big economy to bring such big FDIs in the country. So this is one of the example of black money being round tripped. So this is what is about the international relations in ethics, and India is governed by one of the basic principles of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that is world is a family, and we do not believe in. Gandhiji used to say that there is a similarity of problem across the world. That's why there should be a similarity of solution, and we to cooperate. And also the principles given by Jawaharlal Nehru about Panchsheel, with respect to India and China relation, that was based on ethical consideration, that was based on Buddhism. The principles of non-alignment was also based on ethical considerations, South-South cooperation. So the founding father of India's international relation, Jawaharlal Nehru, and his principles were showcasing the India's rich value and heritage for the ethical issues, ethical considerations, morality that should make this world a better place. So, this was a small lecture. I hope it will help you. Take care.